I was confronted a while ago by some people on a, well, Discord conversation about the idea that creation is not perfect itself. And, well, some people were a bit flared up, I may say, but in the end, patience usually gets to prevail. I was told by people that, creation is perfect, and I asked them, how can you prove it? If this cosmos, a little bit of what creation can accomplish, is not perfect, it is expanding, ever changing, therefore it is not perfect. If it was perfect, it would become stagnant, because perfect means it attained all that there can be. Yes, there is nothing to improve. Wouldn't that perfect mean? And I asked them, what is it that you're presenting as perfect? And they made it sound to me as if perfect means the embodiment of everything that is good. And I said, everything that is good cannot exist without everything that is bad. Even in the paths of awareness, you see, the kindest people are those who end up through hell, because only by going through the hell of the unconscious can you become an angel yourself. If you don't know what deceit means, if you don't know what betrayal means or feels like, you're not going to become a kind person, because only once you have experienced hell can you embrace heaven. They cannot live one without the other. That is why they are not correctly portrayed, even in religious scribblings, that they are some kind of geographical opposite places. They are just overlapped layers of what you call consciousness. And they asked me, how do I know? And I said, why is it that you so called religious people speak to me about creation? You give it names, you give it shapes, you speak to me about creation as if you know it in person. Is it, how can you argument it that much? And they said, well, there's this, there's that. See, all of those scribblings you have, you're only following what your broken parents told you. They have never seen creation itself. They have not met the people who have simply wrote those books. Yes? And those books were written by our ancestors a long while ago. We don't have any proof of them having been altered throughout the time or not at all. Because if your egotistical needs uh, have you or imply in your life that you submit to certain ideas because they're comfortable, what makes you think that your predecessors haven't thought so even about those books? And that suddenly they said, we must change some things in here and there because that's how it must be suiting. In ignorance, everything will be bowed down to serve ignorance. So religion has not been an exception, if you may well look at it. We barely have any zombie religions around. People, shallow people, just do some chores here and there, and nothing feels religious anymore. Even the course, even the everything about that feels somewhat off. It's not about just Christianity itself, but everywhere in the world. It's just like it no longer has the sense that it once used to have. Yes? It no longer has that passion. It no longer ignites that fire that once was. Yes? It's not dying away. It's just giving up its old skin and it's going to become something better, something which will herd people towards the true communion that these so-called Abrahamic religions kind of speak about. Because I don't see much communion in the people that follow, though. And I said, how do you know creation is perfect? And they said, well, it created this whole cosmos that you speak of. And I said, yes, but be assured of the fact that this is not the only cosmos that it created. And you can call it a they instead, because there are multiple forces, not just one single force. Probably that is not written in your holy books, but I assure you there's more than just one single force. You can coalesce them into one single one so that it is much easier to speak about it, but I assure you there are more. And they asked me, how is it that you know? You don't have any Bible or the such. It's like, I do not need one. It's just internal reading. If you can read your own system, if you can read your own body, they all started discarding it as mumbo jumbo and the such. I said, if you compare our behaviors, you are hyperly reactive. I am very calm, and I've been waiting for you to end your points so that I can finally state something of mine. First and foremost, that was disrespectful of them. But secondarily, when you are wise, when you reach a certain level and you can pierce through certain layers of awareness, you don't need books anymore to explain you something. You are already a book. If you open yourself to the right page, the right writing is there. You just need to open those beautiful eyes of yours and just start reading. You don't actually need to read anything. You just have to have the power. Or let's put it like this, you have to have the courage to open up for that. Yes? How do you know something is perfect? Perfect is stagnancy. Perfect is death. Because stagnation is just another relative of death. They're just siblings, cousins, whatever you want to call them. They're just perfect synonyms. If something is perfect, perfection means it is a harmonious combination in between everything that is good and with everything that is bad. And these two harmoniously unified create something which would be called perfect. Creation is never going to be perfect because it constantly expands. It constantly seeks something better. It constantly seeks to improve itself. So therefore it is not perfect, but it is perfectible. Similarly, you are so as well. As a human being, your body is constantly evolving. Your inner dimensions are also evolving, whether you take them into account or not. Some people are too preoccupied with the physical world to have enough time for, spiritual work or things like that. You won't expect probably millionaires or people who travel everywhere around the world and who are very busy to simply have much time left for, meditation or complex rituals and the such. But you can always, I told them, you can always bow down before creation, right? Or, do your religious signs or whatever small rites you have. You know, Christians can always do one or three crosses. Muslims probably have their own little things that they can do, just as a little thanks for creation, right? Creation never expects those, but I assure you, out of years of personal experience, if you show some form of gratitude to the whole cosmos, it will notice it and it will pay it back in certain ways. Maybe it will not feel that you've been repaid in graceful ways, but always have patience, because even if something feels horrible, you will probably realize, hopefully you'll realize soon, that something much horrible was dodged in the meantime. I got the chance for that, and I'm sure other people can. And it's like, I can be very graceful and gracious, but the point is, a lot of people simply shun that away and call it girly or feminine. And I said, see, your religions aren't telling you that. Life is feminine and masculine. Both of these energies exist within all of us. The fact that you're a gender, that is something that was decided by, well, nature, creation, the cosmos, whatever way you want to call it. Yes, that was something. But it doesn't matter what gender you have. You have both of those energies and they have to function harmoniously. If you want to feel alive, if you want to feel as a human being, not just a residue of other people. Because in the end, we kind of all end up as residues of other people. Yes? All their thoughts, their ideas, their miscomforts, their pains, their misaccomplishments. We all end up the trash bin of such trashy people. Whether they are your family, co-workers, schoolmates, classmates, friends that you once liked and then probably they discarded you or you gave them up because they became toxic, or, well, life just happens in time. Sometimes, people just move away. It is a constant of this cosmos. And I was asked, how do I know that creation is not perfect? And I told them, because creation is not dead. Yes? Creation is just resting. Hasn't it been also written in the so-called Bible? 6 days it took creation to create everything, and then in the seventh day it is resting. The seventh day is an eternal day, aka it will last as long as this cosmos will last. Because creation doesn't control anything else. It only was written in your books that it controls something. Because narcissistic behaviors always want control. They always want you to think something else will do things for you, so that you simply become lazy. When you become lazy, responsibilities become a hardcore, right? You cannot crack them anymore. You're not willing to do anything more. So you're always willing to allow others to do things for you. You're allowing governments or other people who don't care about you to do things, and you're having expectations which will never be met. This will lead to even more frustration and to you slowly dying and dwindling more and more. And you will feel more and more hopeless. The more hopeless you feel, the easier you are to control by a sick society. That is why religions were also bent into this as well. Because a sick society's purpose is to make sure that you have things that you like, so that it manipulates those things that you like into weapons against you. Look anywhere in the world and see. Isn't religion a weapon used in separation? It is, because the people who are behind any kind of rulership nowadays, those people are kind of dead on the inside. Yes, they are fancying perfection. But what is this so called perfection that you say? Hmm? Well, perfection lies at the edge of self denial and boredom. Yes? When you are willing to do so many things and then, you're being cut off by everyone because you're never good enough, you're never worthy of anything, right? What happens? You give up on everything. You give up on life, you give up on your dreams, you give up on that inner child of yours, that curiosity that made you human, that made you always question things, always wonder for more and want to embrace more. Yes? That is why life is perfectible, because it always seeks more. Yes? Unconsciously, when you look at yourself, even as a big ignorant, what is the problem? The problem is you want things, and then you want something else, and then you want another thing. This is how life functions. You have the power of consciousness to choose whether you give in to that and you become a slave of those circumstances, or you become more aware of things that you actually truly need. Because, well, we live in a consumerist world. We don't need everything that we have. Yes, you don't need most of the things that you have, but you're still keeping them there just in case. A lot of people, just to run away from past life trauma or even current life trauma, they're just buying things and then they're buying even more and then they're buying even more. But in the end, they just end up with toxic waste. Yes, residue of their own frustrations and energy that will become, you know, those objects will become imbued with your own energy and it will feel like you're giving up a limb, right? A leg, an arm, if you are to suddenly throw those things away. The more time things linger around you, the harder it will be to simply give them up. Because in the end, that's how things go. That's how things function. So the point is, creation is always seeking to improve. Yes, there's always new life forms appearing. Life will always seek a way in, even in the most inhospitable environments. Life is just constantly a challenge, because that is the point of life. Life is challenge, and challenges are life. They are part one of the other. Yes? Whether you perceive them well or not, that is a subjective experience. But a very simple point about life, nothing is perfect in it. You wouldn't have reached any height you have reached in your life without the mistakes that you have done. When you end up thinking that you're a mistake, I uploaded a video on that exact topic. When people tell you that you're a mistake, well, just look at them and let them be, right? If anything in this world would be a mistake, well, I don't think anything in this world is a mistake. Everything exists, but it doesn't need necessarily a reason. A lot of people kind of fail in here. And perfection only occurs in people who give up. Yes? You will see people who are wise, people who keep looking, people who keep improving. You will never see one of those calling themselves perfect, unless probably they are doo-doo, or less, unless they are of some narcissistic tendency or some probable sociopathic tendency and the such. Yes, they seek to glorify the perfection that they are not. Because in the end, you are not this body, you are not this mind in the end. Yes, you are neither of those. You make use of those to experience this beautiful life. But other than that, you're neither of those. And I actually was asked, how do I know? Well, I told them, well, can you ask your relatives who passed away the same question? Because, one day you are going to give up this body. One day you're going to leave this body and the mind it has. You're going to leave them behind. Yes, it is a constant of life, of this cosmos. Sooner or later, everything that is physical will be left behind. Sooner or later, Unfortunately, a lot of people rediscover their mortality when they are very old, and then they start having all sorts of frustrations. When they realize their mortality, they realize that they are no longer perfect, right? Because when people are bored and at the same time they ache because they choose to stay in the same mental prison that they've been living in for the longest time, well, obviously, then they will call themselves perfect. Because calling yourself perfect is a very cheesy way of admitting that, well, you simply embrace the defeat. You allow life to simply do whatever it wills with you, and you simply allow yourself to be taken by the current instead of actually swimming alongside it or against it, depending on what it is important, depending on what you as an individual have to achieve. But oftentimes you have to swim against the current. At times you have to let yourself be taken by it. It is your responsibility to figure out what life has in store for you and what will happen with your life. Because you will always have plans and there will be things that will try to foil it. And well, if there were no challenges in life, what would be the purpose of living? We can always ask the ignorance because they gave up their life, they gave up their dreams, they gave up their inner child. Technically, they're just dead men walking. They're just moving corpses, waiting to be put in a coffin, right? When the time is right. So hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You are appreciated. Take care. Enjoy life. And this being said, Ferencan Board signing out.